Great. So that's looking good. All right. Good. Okay, that's looking good. And nice. Nice. Okay, I'll get that all good. Let me just get my pen. I saw it here. There it is. Yeah, tucked away. Yeah. Own the podium. It's yours. Okay. So let me just start with. We're going to start officially in 5 minutes, just getting everything connected and set up. So, what's today? Uh, Short history. What's that? Yeah, you know what? Yeah, could you just start running Earthrise and let's see with audio and see how it goes because I'm going to run that as well during the. Yeah, let's see. It's got nice. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Sure. Okay. So I'm just talking right now to the online group. Could you in the live chat, on Appleby, I'm just off to the side right now. We're just getting going. In the live chat, could you just start to write your full names? So Ethan, Logan, Marshall, I'll explain afterwards, okay? So go ahead. Exactly. Yeah, good. Okay. Logan, Marshall, uh, everyone full names, okay? Because this is how you're gonna get your participation marks. So Xavier, nice, nice. I'll explain in a moment. And people are starting to come into the classroom. For those of you online who want to watch the video that we're watching now, just go to the class folder on DC Connect, and you'll see it's called Earthrise. Okay? And maybe Maureen can also put into the live chat to say, if you want to watch the video, go to the class folder, class one, and click on Earthrise, okay? And you'll see what we're watching now. Uh, okay, so Okay, so I'm just putting things onto the great, we're getting a good turnout. I'm gonna go over to yes, please, just put your names on the easel, full name clearly, okay? Get that moving around, and we're gonna start in a couple of minutes. Hmm, excellent. See, our temperature's good. Great. Yeah, excellent, okay, good. Actually, could you just bring that back to the, thumbnail of, live? The, yeah, just keep that, and then yeah, great. Alright, um, okay, just lower that, like, you could actually cut the audio, just let that run. Welcome, everybody, to the Global Classroom at Durham College. I'm Professor Lon Appleby, and this is our Global Classroom Coordinator, Maureen Kahn, whom you will be hearing from quite a bit as well. And behind me, you see on the big board right now our $500,000 new Blackboard for the future, a very important historical moment in the human story. And it is the moment when we humans saw the planet for the first time whole. Today, you're going to be introduced to something very new in terms of an educational experience. So let me just explain what's going to happen in this room for the next 90 minutes, okay? And then if you decide at the end of today's class that you don't want to be taking this gen ed, there are lots of other really good gen ed electives, and you have lots of time to drop this class and take another class. So not to worry. You should, by the end of today's class, have a good sense of what to expect from this course over the next 14 weeks. So just enjoy it. We're going to be doing a lot of interacting in a moment. I'm going to explain a lot about my teaching style and about, most importantly, the story of humanity. And I'm going to give a little presentation as well about that. Then we're going to break out and you're going to meet each other too. So this is good. Normally at the beginning of any class that I do in here, we always have some troubleshooting to do, as some of my students from other classes may remember. I see them here on the couches, but we're getting better and better at creating what we think is the best classroom in the world. We're trying to create something very new for the world here at Durham College, and I think we're doing pretty well so far. So let me just talk a little bit so you can understand more about what to expect in the course and what to expect today. Unless you have any questions at this point, you're free to ask. Otherwise, I need to explain and set you up for what is this that you've entered, this sort of multimedia hybrid classroom for the future. And that's a critical part of this course as well, not just the content, not just the history of humanity, history of the world, if you will. So first, let's just make sure that everybody in the cosmos, as I call it, is there, and I see them and they put their names in the live chat. That's great. They can hear me. They can see everybody here. And essentially, the idea of what this class is that you can join it any way you like. You can be in person, you can come online synchronously. If you want, you can share your video, share your audio so that all of those little planets in the cosmos are the icons of different people from our own video conferencing system that we are developing here, high security, very, very secure system. Those icons represent people from elsewhere in the class. We have 116 students registered in this course over 2 cohorts, fully fully booked. Everybody, all spots are taken. So most of the students are not here. They're going to be watching the recordings, like the television show, if you will, and they're going to be doing all of their participating remotely. But for the real power and the real learning experience of being here, it's great that you've come in person, but you always have the option. Okay. So I think you all knew that already, that you have that option. Okay. The second thing I need to explain about this is that for the moment, I just need to wear a little bit of my old director's hat and producer's hat because I come from a long background in television and film and journalism before I began developing the human story for the campus here. I teach not just short history of the world, but humanity's destiny, global leader. I need to explain something to you about just the recording. Okay, we are now live stream on YouTube in high definition, where we record the class, so you get a really nice recording. From a technical standpoint, I wear this so that I can be heard clearly. The microphones will be passed around when you speak so that it sounds like a nice podcast, really intimate, not with a microphone buried up in a ceiling and everybody feels remote. And Maureen controls the cameras here. There are cameras all over, so we can get different angles. So in a way, the classroom is a bit like a studio, a production studio, but it's a classroom as well. It's a lounge in a way. It's a theater as well because we have this kind of great new display. So it's a new kind of classroom that you're in. Now, the first thing I need to say is for all the students sitting far away, I need to bring you in close so that all the students online and watching the recording see you. Because if you're not seen on a screen, you don't exist for the class. You see, there's the live stream right now on YouTube 10 seconds ago. So you can see that right now for everybody online, the class looks a little empty, but it's not. It's only because you guys are all back there. So I need you to come in here, okay? So come sit on the couches. And for those who aren't on the couches, please sit in the desks in the first row around the couches. Thanks a lot, okay? You will understand this all as we begin to get going. Great. And for all of the students watching online now, you can start to see that we are getting a class going. And if there's no room on the couches, exactly. Sit, please, in the tables here, and then gradually we go back. And that way we fill up the space. When I used to produce television shows and television documentaries, you can still see one of the series. I did many for CBC and elsewhere, but one that still does very well is called Zoo Diaries. It still runs on the National Geographic Channel and Discovery that I produced and directed with my partners. I used to say to my cameraman and my crews, pack the frame, fill up the frame with people because we want to give it energy. So now it looks like we have a class, okay? Now, the second thing, thank you very much for doing that because some students don't like to do that at the beginning, okay? But I think you get it, and that's what you're here for, is this sort of more future kind of looking classroom. The other reason, too, I do this is because we've tried to create this feeling of a class for everybody. It's not Zoom. So that when the students join synchronously, as they are now, they're coming into exactly the same space that you are. They have a wide shot of what you're looking at from that camera back there. You see the black camera back there? So they're seeing what you're seeing. And then when the recording is available in a few hours after the class, we post it. All the other students, including you, if you want to rewatch the class or check anything, are seeing the same thing too. So again, this is not, it's sort of taking the pandemic and what we learned from the pandemic in terms of technology and really trying to take the classroom to the next step. All right. And so by having all of you in the frame, it means that anytime somebody comes to the recording or they're in the Cosmos right loud, like Liam or Logan or Marshall, they are seeing all of you, our learning community. And when they are posting their participation discussion posts afterwards in the same place you are, everybody feels like they're part of this community. Does that make sense? Yeah, so we've designed it visually that way. And if this feels a little bit uncomfortable being so close right now, you're going to eventually, by the end of the class, I think, gonna feel pretty jazzed up when you leave. You're gonna feel inspired and energized because there's one other thing that's really important about what we've designed. You're going to see a story in a moment as I start to introduce the human story, the story of humanity on planet Earth that is dazzling and remarkable and new in terms of the big story of the rise of humanity and civilizations and who's got the ring, who has the most powerful civilization, how did civilizations come and go. You're going to see a story that begins from the Big Bang, from how nature began. But you need to understand something about the moment that you're in right now. And I'd like to just remind you of what you're seeing behind you on the screen at the moment, and then we'll go to the PowerPoint in a second. That image right there is called Earthrise. Right now, we're running without audio a short documentary that appeared on the New York Times website several years ago, in which the astronauts from the Apollo 8 mission in 1968 were interviewed. And do you want to just freeze on that for a second? Yeah, good. Oh, go back just to that. Good, if you can. Nice, great. Okay, this is really working beautifully. Way to go. We are living at a time where we know there's a planet. We've seen it. And you may not realize it, but you're living in very historical times. We're living at the time in history when humans are beginning to develop new kinds of intelligence, artificial intelligence, machine learning, uh, deep kinds of new intelligence that is challenging what it means to be a human. There is a story we need to tell today, the shared human story about how did we so quickly, we the human race, get to the point where after only about 10,000 years of civilization, 10,000 years soon is going to feel like very little time to you when we open this up to the big cosmic time of Earth and humanity. How have we managed to actually reach a point so quickly where we've gone from just a few thousand families, different parts of the world, and over 10,000 years, we're now at 8 billion, growing 70 million annually on the planet and leaving the planet. We're going elsewhere now, led by a person I'm going to talk about a lot, for better or for worse, Elon Musk. I think you all know who he is. I'm not a huge fan, but you should just know I'm a fan of his engineering, but I don't like what comes out of his mouth. But we'll get to that, okay? We are at a point where you need to understand something about how did we, the humans, get to this point where we have created this immense technological planet-wide civilization where we are changing nature. So much so that look what's happening in California today. Have you seen the wildfires? I think you know why they're happening to that extent. Once upon a time, climate change, which is a normal part of the natural process, would lead to extreme weather events every 100 years or so, 150 years. Normal. Now it's every year or two because we humans are driving what's happening on that. So the question we're going to be exploring through this whole semester is, how did this happen? And in a moment, I'm going to present to you a little bit of an overview of some of the critical forces and topics and the kind of the broad strokes of the story that we're gonna be exploring, but week to week, we're gonna be telling the chronological story going all the way back to 13.7 billion years ago, and I'm gonna take you through the great breakthroughs in the development of human civilization. And this is a story we can tell now because we are learning so much from science, from archaeology, anthropology, paleontology, all the earth sciences. We have this planet-wide view now, so everybody's wondering, what is this bigger story on planet Earth? So I'm gonna stop for a moment because I just want to remind you of this image is going to be haunting us through the whole course. I was born just before this happened. I was born in 1962. This happened in 1968. And this is the moment when we actually saw our planet for the first time covered on live television. The astronauts started reading from the scriptures. They were so moved. So the idea that we are now living in the era irreversibly where we know we are on a planet. No conspiracy theories here. This is real stuff. This idea is changing us, but it's slow. The planetary view. What is the story? What has happened on planet Earth as a result of humans? What is that bigger story? We're ready to tell it. So I'm going to stop just because I'd like to ask you if any of you have anything they'd like to say at this point before we continue with the class. And you're going to see how interactive it is. There's going to be a lot of activities where we really talk and discuss. My lectures are going to be very interactive in that way. That's why we're together, so we can speak as humans. I will say one final thing before you can speak if you would like. You are welcome to bring your machines into the class anytime. Machine over there, machine over there, little machine over here in front of Piyush, machine over here, 2 machines over here, machines over there. Absolutely welcome to do that because you're going to learn that our machines give us immense power on this planet. But as you all know, it is possible now for you to spend your entire day living inside your machine. You know what I mean. This can be awesome, but it can be dangerous. I hope that when you come into the in-person class, you will remember that you're coming to be with humans. And if you don't want to be with humans, you want to be in your machine alone, I would suggest you stay in the cosmos, like the students here, but they may have different reasons for why they've come in, or you watch the recordings. You have all sorts of options. But if you want the full experience of learning together as human beings, of doing what William McNeill, one of our great world historians, has said, which is we humans are great, persistent, collective learners. We learn well together. No other animal on this planet has ever done that. Not the elephants, as bright as they are, or chimpanzees, our oldest ancestors, or even some of the most intelligent squirrels that you may see. We are the creature that like to be together and learn together. So if you find yourself disappearing into your machine during the in-person experience, it might be because you're bored. Fair enough, that happens. Or it might be because you have become a little bit of a slave to your machine. But you can challenge me on that. So let's stop for a second, okay? And make sure before I put up the little presentation, I want to talk to you about today, and then we will perhaps get into a bigger group activity. Uh, does anybody have anything they would like to say at this point? You don't have to. Yes, okay, so here we go. This is the beginning of the um, students speaking. So generally, this is how it works: is I'll bring the microphone around, or someone will give it to you, and just turn it on. So it's off now. Turn it on, and like karaoke, speak like karaoke, and then Santiago and Marshall and Ethan and all the others out there in the cosmos watching the recording, they'll hear you just like a Joe Rogan podcast. Nice and intimate, but maybe a little more.
Intelligent.
What's that?
Intelligent than Joe Rogan.
Exactly. Joe's good, but he's a little, maybe he likes the attention a little too much. So anyways, we'll go ahead. Yes.
I suppose he likes the attention because as human beings, we want power, but we're powerless. We want to feel big and we want to feel loved, but we're really small in the scale of things, really. We're around for what, 70 years and then we're gone?
Well, now a student is really jumping into this. And what's your name?
Ron.
Ron. Welcome, Ron.
It's my 9th lifetime around, you know.
It's your 9th lifetime?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have some exploring to do with Ron about those other lives and what he might have experienced, and to see if your memory from those other lives is still intact.
Well, in the Old West once, I got killed by a bunch of white lab coats, but
Okay.
don't know why that happened. I'm a nice guy.
I can tell you one thing, he has something that's so basic to humans, which is amazing. He has a good imagination. I'm getting that sense, and that's very good, because you're going to see that what distinguishes us from a lot of the other creatures on this planet is our minds, is our imaginations. And so, excellent. Thank you, Ron, for that. We will continue. I just want to take this slowly to give you all a sense of how this is going to work today. Okay? Is there anybody else that would like to say anything or speak? Ethan, I see a icon up there in the live chat clapping. What does that mean? Are you clapping? Is a hand raised? Okay, Ethan, go ahead. Are you able to open your microphone? Let's see how ready he is to connect. Ethan? That is a wave. Okay, good. So all the different ways that you can join the class, but we take advantage of technology in this class to make the educational experience more interesting for all of you, as opposed to being intimidated by it. He's in the live chat and he's not really speaking, but we know who he is and we can see the live chat there. So Ethan is definitely part of the class. Thank you. If there's anything else, the planets out there, Planet Janvi, Ethan, Logan, Marshall, you can always jump on your microphone and actually enter the class immediately with audio, and we will hear you. You can even share your beautiful face, and we will have you on the screen right here, and you can join us. But you don't have to do that, okay? So let's see if there's anybody else here that would like to say anything before I move on. Anything? You don't have to. I just want to let you know that you're welcome to say anything before we continue. Okay, now, a couple of things I need to explain before we start with the story today, because there's a lot that I want to introduce you to. Now, first, I would like to make sure that you understand how you're going to be assessed and what the assignments will be like in this course. So I just want to give everybody an idea of how this is going to work, how you're actually going to get your 100% or 95% or 90%. So remember this, and we might, would you go over and do maybe a card? Would you be able to? Yeah, okay, stay there. Maureen will show you how this is going to work. Eventually, we'll put one of you over there to make notes, but we do real-time PowerPoint slides. Here go the real-time slides. Okay, we're going to do this together. So we're going to do a little evaluation slide right now, and you will have a record of this. The PDF will be saved into the folder on DC Connect. So just watch this, and if you have any questions, you can, of course, ask, but this will be available to you. So you will have essentially 13 discussion posts to do. So 13 discussion posts. After every class, you have to go to the discussion post in the class folder for that class in DC Connect. So every class in DC Connect has a folder, class 1, class 2, class 3. You'll see that. And in there are the materials for the class, including the recording of the class, including the live chat that we save, including this as well. And then at the end of that, in that folder, you'll see discussion board. Click there, and every class for the in-person students first. Everybody is doing 13 discussion posts, okay? Whether they are here, whether they are in the Cosmos, whether they are the asynchronous students, they're all doing the discussion posts. But you guys do less work because you've come in person. So for you, at the end of today's class and every class, if you want your 1.5% each week for participation, at the end of the class, between now and next class, you just write down a question written really well based on what we covered in that class. Think about just any question that you would like to ask. Put it into the discussion thread. You do that before next week's class, you get 3 out of 3. You get your full 100, 1.5%. Every week, if you do that and you come, you are getting your full participation marks for in-person. I'm going to explain a bit how it's going to work for Santiago and Ethan and the synchronous online students and then the asynchronous students. But I see hands. Do you want? Yeah, okay, good. Because it's really important you understand this. So make sure, and if there's anything we're missing, we'll put it in there, okay? For the synchronous online students, the ones in the Cosmos right now, they can put in a question as well, but they'll only receive 2 out of 3. If they want 3 out of 3, they have to do exactly what all the recording students have to do. And this is where there's a little bit of work. They have to put a question, and then for 175 to 200 words, they have to explain why they're asking that question. So let me just make sure everybody gets this, okay? Because you are being rewarded for coming in person a little bit. And that's as it should be. People today don't want to be in person anymore very much, but a lot of people do too, and you will receive that extra little bonus, which is you just have to put the question in. But if you decide you don't want to come that week for whatever reason, and you're just going to watch the recording, well, then you've got to do the full explanation for the 3 out of 3. Or if you happen to pop in, like Logan has or others, then you get the 2 out of 3. But if you want the 3 out of 3, you got to do the explanation. Is that clear? Is it good? Okay. It seems to work. This is all new, which has meant that I've had to do some serious tracking, and I've learned how to do this properly. So for all of you this semester in person, there is a clipboard. Where is that clipboard? It's around, oh, nice, okay. So all of you who are here in person, you have to write down your name clearly here, because what I do is I go back afterwards and I have my system in my spreadsheet. I have 116 students in this class. So I have to keep track of who is here in person, who is here in the Cosmos, who's doing the recording. And I've got my system now. So when you write your name down clearly here, I go back in the spreadsheet, and in my roster of all the names, I just put a little green color next to that student. So I know that Jazeel was here in person, and Piyush was here in person. And I can see that. And as soon as I see their question come in on the discussion board, I put 3 out of 3 right next to them. With the rest, John V and the others, I put a little purple. And that reminds me that they just came in online, and I'll still wait to see if that question comes. If it doesn't, then they get the 2. And if I noticed that they disappeared halfway through the class, they might just get a 0 because I'm onto this. I've noticed some students pop in just to get the marks, and then they pop out. Of course, you can't do that here because I can see you. But with them, I watch the recordings too, guys. So just be aware, everybody out there, that I'm kind of onto this. So please make sure that if you want your 3 out of 3 here in person, it has to start with you writing clearly your name. And please, for everybody here, write your name clearly, because we have students from I don't know how many different countries with names that go into like 10 syllables sometimes. And I love that. But if you don't write it clearly, I can't make a proper record. So has this all gone around? Everybody good? Yeah, okay, so make sure, okay, by the end of the class, you're there. Okay, we're still on the housekeeping part, but you gotta know how this class is going to work. Does anybody have any questions? Anything they would like to? I know Jazeel from another class because I teach Global Leader and I teach Humanities Destiny. So some of the students come from other classes, okay? Jazeel? It starts this week, yeah. Last semester, it started next week. It starts this week. Did it? Okay, I'm more on top of it this semester. It starts this week. So you will have until the beginning of next week's class to post your question for this week's class. I would recommend that you do it as soon as possible, even during the class or just after when it's fresh. And then in each class that follows, in our review section, I will always start the class next week with some review of the questions, some feedback. I will start with feedback very quickly with all of you. I can't give you individual feedback for all the discussion posts, too many students. So I do it generally to the class. Now, the other thing, and then we can move on. Those are the discussion posts, each worth 1.5% each, 13 of them. If you do the math, you will wonder, well, there's still a lot left. 4 assignments. Okay? 4 assignments. They are all reflections. You do not have any exams or tests in this class. Everything in this class, in terms of the work that you do for marks, is you thinking and reflecting, either with words or with videos that you do. Okay, so I want this to be clear. So we have, soon you will see the first assignment posted, A1. That is a 425 to 450 word reflection worth 15%. A2 that you'll see is also worth 15%. Those 2 assignments will be done before the break, before week 7 of this semester. But then in the second half of the semester, the assignments get longer. A3 is worth 20% or 25. I'll see this semester. It's 725 to 750 words. And then the big work that you're going to do at the end is A4, and it's worth 30%. And that's a big essay. Okay? So you can sort of see the math, and I may have to adjust this a little bit as I'm tweaking this semester, but basically you have your weekly discussion post, you have your 4 assignments, no tests, no exams, lots of writing, and then in the final assignment for the big one, you have a choice of how you do it. You could do it as a short documentary, a video, an essay, and I've had students win awards in these classes for the work that they've done. So I'm going to be pushing you to really get beyond where you think you are to do some work you're really proud of. But it's all you reflecting and thinking about the story that we've been covering, okay? Is it making sense? Any questions? And what's your name? Evan. Hi, Evan. Welcome. Go ahead and
I'm just wondering if those word counts are very strict or if they're lenient.
the word count.
Yes.
There's usually some wiggle room.
Okay.
It's Evan.
Yes.
Yeah, 50 words either way.
Perfect.
But Evan, there's a method in this madness, okay, for why I try to keep the wiggle room tighter. To write a lot is easy. To write less is harder. less is more. Could you just make another slide thing? Beautiful writing. Somebody is going to be doing these notes later today from the class. Mayreen's just kicking this off because she's got other things to do. So just continue to write evaluation and just write down in big letters, less is more. Now, when I say something like that, Evan, what do you think? Why would I say less is more?
Quality over quantity.
What's that?
Quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity, absolutely. Quality over quantity. And there's something else here that maybe isn't immediately apparent, but I'll help you to understand about how we're assessing in this class. Ron?
Hemingway.
Woof. Wow, now we have Hemingway. Very good. Go on. Yes?
Yeah, he chose the quality of his diction over the quantity of his diction. Right, Evan?
That's right. Ron, do you know where Ernest Hemingway got that idea from? I can help you because I have written a lot and I used to teach literature and I've written many articles, magazine articles, and just finishing a book. So I love to write. Do you know where he got that from?
I'm sorry, I don't.
I'm going to give a little extra information for Ron right now, who's becoming default. But we're going to move it around. I'll say this very quickly. Ernest Hemingway, one of the great American writers of the 20th century, along with F. Scott Fitzgerald and many others, had an editor. His name was Max Perkins. He was the editor at Charles Scribner's and Sons. He was Ernest Hemingway's editor. And Max Perkins, and there's a great biography of him that you can read called Max Perkins, Editor of Genius. And Max Perkins said to him, as he did to many other writers, cutting is gaining. Cutting is gaining. Cutting is not losing. Cutting is gaining. Clarity. Cutting is gaining focus. Cutting is gaining intellectual power. And that gradually filtered through Ernest Hemingway's great brain before he, thanks Mayreen, before he lost it and put a gun to his head, like many writers end up doing in their lives. Suicide is very common. He then translated that eventually into his philosophy, less is more. So the reason I say this, and it's great that you bring this up, is you are going to learn that one of the breakthroughs in the human story, we humans invented writing. You're going to see how that happened in what's called Mesopotamia, or the land between two rivers, and Fertile Crescent. You're going to see how different cultures around the world, whether it was Chinese or Indian in the Americas or in African cultures, but particularly in the Near East, or we would call Mesopotamia, just between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where early civilizations really advanced. You're going to see how writing started. Writing has given humans great power, the written word. And so the ability to write well has also allowed humans to be able to think more clearly about things. When you have everything in your head, it all tends to get mixed up with all the other crap in your head. And usually what comes out, at least in your thoughts, is a lot of fear. Most of us in our heads walk around all day with a lot of fear, a lot of feeling overwhelmed. We can't handle things. We're angry at something, or our emotions are all over the place. But as soon as we have to take this and start to kind of go, well, Ron said Ernest Hemingway, period, you're focusing your thoughts. And then you see a record of your thoughts. In other words, this is critical thinking. So in this class, writing is not a product. It's not something where you have to do a perfect draft immediately. Writing is a process. to help you become a more critical, deeper, focused thinker. Does that make sense? So that's why I'm going to be pushing you a lot with writing. And for those of you who may not like writing, I'm going to help you. Okay? So, okay, there's a lot I'm saying, a lot I'm not saying, but I want to make sure everybody has a chance to ask questions before I show you something of the story that we're going to be exploring. So there's evaluation. Let's want to just go back to the first slide. Just take it back and you can leave it there. Is everybody clear on how they're going to be assessed in the class and what to expect? And great. I see a from Planet Muntad. Is it Muntader? Is that how you pronounce it? Let's see if we get a human voice to correct me. Muntader? Hello? Are you there on Planet Muntader? Do we have, let's see, what now? Can you bring the PowerPoint in? And, great. Okay, well then, this is what happens in a live chat when we're in sort of the kind of remote, is that somebody asks a question and then they have disappeared from their planet. That's okay. Space station. We'll engineer a rescue mission soon to that planet. Do you want to bring it? And can you bring it back here and then leave the Toria over there? And let's see if we can. Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. And then we're going to start with this, and I'm going to get my little here, okay, and click on presenter view. We may not. It's okay. Yeah, Maureen is just working on that for a moment, and then I'm going to start. So, anything? I love to talk about the human story on planet Earth, as you're going to see, but I can talk too much, and you are the ones who matter the most. Students often say when they watch the recordings, they like watching the interaction with the students. Okay. So, Jazeel, grab the, make sure you have this and everybody's good. Yep. Okay, and bring that over to the other side.
When we say short history of the world, like, let's say, what part of history? When we say short, what is considered short in this course?
Well, I'm going to explain that. You're already anticipating what I was going to talk about because I'm going to address the short part and the history part and the story of humanity. And we're about to now really get into the content, which is what you're really here to do. And what I'd like to do is after I go through some of this critical content today, that we will do an activity together where you will meet each other more. And each week there's going to be an activity after my little lecture. Thanks. And if we have a good turnout of in-person students, we'll generally have 3 or 4 students at each pod working on a screen together. And everything that you're working on there can be seen up on the board. And then we will come and take that up together. So it's going to become like a real lab, like a think tank of young minds working on the big ideas around the human story together, okay? That's how it's generally going to work. So, okay, we're trying something new today, and let's just make sure that this is working. I may be clicking the wrong one. It may, if not, I can come over here and see. Sometimes it's working there, but not when I move. So let's see. Okay, just a second, everyone. Sometimes there's a little troubleshoot. Yeah, it's just disappeared. You know what? I'll run it from here. Okay, no problem. And if you can perhaps take some notes while we're going, and then I'll do it here. Okay, so I'll do the old way. Okay, great. So we have become really good at troubleshooting, and one of the things I often say to students, at least in the global leader class that I teach here about the story of humans today, is just watch how I deal with tech. I don't get flustered. I don't get overwhelmed. I don't get tech stress. Now, let me just explain this for a moment, okay? Because I know you know what I'm talking about. If your tech does not work when you wake up, tell me how your day is going to go. If your phone is not on, you're not able to access your social media quickly, watch how your day unravels and how flustered you get. Well,
Anxiety attack.
the anxious generation. That's what you're called. And if I were to be honest, I'm 62, but I will put myself among you too. We're all anxious, super anxious because of tech. Well, my view is this: tech is very important in our lives. Tech gives us so much power, so much speed, so much connection. But if tech becomes the thing we depend on, and every time tech goes wrong, then we emotionally are starting to break down, we've got a problem. So my view is chill out, do your best with tech, and be ready for your B plan, your C plan, your D plan, and just pivot. Pivot here, pivot there. Now we have a problem with the clicker. Who cares? We'll go back to the old way. Are you ready to pivot? Move. Not, well, let's stop the class for 15 minutes and get the clicker working. I mean, that's just madness. The human story, since we picked up a rock 3 million years ago from the earth with our opposable thumb and our fingers and began to manipulate this into a tool, well, this has now grown into rocket ships. But they're just tools. What matters is our humanity, our humanness. And so I want to come back to what this story is about. I am going to be telling you a story over the next 13 weeks or so, a shortened version of how we humans evolved, where we come from, where we started as humans, how civilization began, and who began to have the power. Now, Jazeel asked a good question. He says, what's the short part? Short history of the world. Well, nobody can tell a complete history of the world, of what's happened on planet Earth. It's just too big. But there are world historians whom you will meet and many others who over the last decades, it's a very recent kind of field of history, who are beginning to help us to understand there is a story to tell. If we really look at the research, there is a human shared story on planet Earth, but we have to be selective, Jazeel. So I've tried to be selective based on good scholarship in terms of what is our shared human story, not the brown story, the black story, the Canadian story, the Indian story, the Chinese story, the Muslim story, the Jewish story, the Christian story, the Hindu story, the Buddhist story, the American story, I mean, the Greek story, the Roman story. No, it's bigger than that. What's the human story? That's the story we're telling more and more of today. So in this human story, there is this thing called humanity. And what you're going to learn this semester as we tell this story chronologically, next week we'll go straight from 13.7 billion years right up to 7 million years ago. It's going to be a fast roar through where we begin. You're going to come to understand more of what humanity means. Humanity is not just mankind or humankind. It's also a state of being. If you look at the definition of humanity, it's freighted with meaning. It has other meanings. It's the bond that unites us. In the word humanity is human. So when we're talking about the story of humanity on planet Earth, we're talking also about a state of being, of the connection between humans, and possibly we will ask this question as we look more at evolution. Are we starting to lose our humanity? It's a huge question. When we look at the events, when we look at the forces, when we look at the ideas and the breakthroughs, all these great developments in the human story on planet Earth, it's under this overarching thing of, well, where is humanity going? Where are we going? What is the human future? We're going to be exploring the past here, but in the background always is going to be the question, as you're listening to me tell you about this and we do these things, it's this question of, well, where is humanity going now? What's my future now that I've learned so much more about how I got here? And that's what you're going to have to grapple with in your life. I can't help you with that. That's going to be something you're going to have to be thinking about a lot, which is every week after you come out of a class, you're going to be wondering, where am I going? At this time in history, when we are leaving planet Earth and our machines are beginning to seriously replace us. When artificial intelligence or synthetic intelligence is beginning to replace biological intelligence to such an extent that what does it mean to be a human anymore? Do we even matter? Whew. These are huge questions. Those you will ask. I will try to help you to understand how we came to this. So let's remind ourselves that it all begins, this story, with the idea that we're living at this point in history right now where in 1968, in one of our early space missions, when we were going to the moon, actually, we didn't get right to the moon. We just saw the moon, but we saw planet Earth from a distance. That's Earthrise right there, the image that you were seeing at the beginning of today's class. There is our planet. It's like we're living right now at this moment in history where humans are just beginning to understand the reality of their shared story. We've never had this view, ever. No creature on this planet has ever had this view. And so this view of our place in the solar system and beyond is something that we have to understand more and more of. So let me start a little bit more by trying to help you to just remember that at the core of the story this semester is, how did planet Earth happen? Well, what is it? Because this entire story of humanity has only happened on this planet and no other planet, as far as we know. So there's something very special. And when you begin to understand something about evolution, which is the greatest force that you're going to learn about this semester, for all of you who are very religious or at least use religion, your scriptures, as a way to understand our origins, that's okay. And I will talk about that more next week when we really begin the story. But to understand what it means to be a modern human being on planet Earth, in the world going forward, you must understand evolution. Everything has been changing on this planet and will change. We humans, who are a product of evolution, are doing something that no other creature has ever done on this planet. We are accelerating evolution. We are making evolution go faster. So there is something in this story that is really important about humans. And it's about the fact that in the story of humanity, as you will see, there are forces, deep forces in our story that have been shaping us and making us who we are. There are events that have happened. We will cover those critical events. There are ideas, important ideas that we humans have created that define what's in our minds, because what's in our minds is what we act on. So the ideas that you carry around all day in your head are very, very important. Those are creations of humans, those ideas. Why are some ideas more important than others? Very philosophical. We will touch on that. There are forces, there are breakthroughs, and there are great individuals in this story. But the force of science is immense. When we talk about evolution, that's probably the greatest force in this story. You and I and everyone are living at a time where our lives and our future are being driven by scientific discovery. Humans are learning more and more about what's been buried in the planet, in the layers of the planet. And even now, with global warming and climate change and ice melting, more things are starting to pop up. Corpses of people, objects and fossils, and things that we never knew were there. I'm going to try and bring history to life to you in a way that maybe you've never seen before, which is we have so much evidence now, so many things that are coming up in the field of anthropology and earth sciences. This is an animal that we discovered that came out from some melted ice from climate change, and it's about 16,000 years old. Look at its body. Look at how well preserved it is. Something like a dog, something like a wolf. When you begin to see something about the reality of life on this planet, you're going to start to, I think, feel more connected to what's happened before. History is going to come alive to you. It's not just dates and abstract events, but it's actually people and animals and things that are in the earth, buried there, that are coming out more and more. And one of those things that is a remarkable creature, if you think about it, is your dog. Of all the animals that we humans have coexisted with or killed, all the massive, huge animals that we killed, it's called the megafaunal extinction. You will learn about that. Once upon a time, 15, 16,000 years ago, in North America, Canada, this whole continent, there were saber-toothed tigers roaming around, and giant sloths, and huge horses. We killed them all, we humans. The megafaunal extinction. There's one animal that genetically and biologically has learned how to coexist with the human, and that's the dog. You ever wonder why dogs take such good direction from humans and you love your dog? Because we've been coexisting with dogs and these creatures for many thousands of years. And in their genome, in their genes, they have traits that allow themselves, and they've learned how to live with us. All these animals, all these people that we're beginning to learn about more and more, that are coming up through the layers of the planet as ice melts, or scientists and others and young explorers and archaeologists, they go digging for things, and we see these shoes that were worn by actually a human being living about 10,000 years ago in the Andes Mountains in Peru. Those are the real objects, the real things that a human being wore. They were shoes 10,000 years ago. There's a human from Egypt, Ginger. You can see Ginger today lying in the British Museum. This is my picture I took when I was there. That is a 4,000-year-old corpse, so well preserved in the sands of Egypt, because sand removes moisture from the body, and the moisture can degrade a body, but you get rid of that moisture, and much of that body can be preserved. Look at that. A human being 4,000 years ago went to his death curled up because he thought he would have an afterlife. He would be reborn. He still has a little bit of his hair, ginger-colored hair, if you look at it. That's why this body is called Ginger, because the Egyptians, as you will see, the great Egyptian civilization, one of the longest of our empires in human history, they liked cosmetics. They like to dye their hair, and they like tattoos. And there is Donatella. She was wearing those boots. She's actually about, we think, 10,000 years old, but maybe a little bit less, so well preserved, again in the ice, in the Andes Mountains, in Peru, with her braided hair, with her clothes still intact. These are humans like you. And in this story, this semester, I'm going to try and bring to life the story of us on this planet in ways where you will start to connect and feel closer to the people and the ideas so that you can see you're part of all of this. It's not this distant past. Look at how well preserved this body is. And look at of course, the gloves and the white clothes that are being worn by this human, because we humans now, we have science, we have laboratories, we have a way of uncovering and preserving things. We've learned how to do this. And this brings us back very much to the power of science. This is a very important city that you may hear some more about this semester, and it's called Bern in Switzerland. And at the beginning of the 20th century, this is where Albert Einstein lived, Switzerland. And Albert Einstein is among many scientists and free thinkers that you will hear a lot about this semester who advanced our understanding of not just our history, but our daily reality. It's called understanding nature. That's science. And in this place called Bern in Switzerland, Albert Einstein, at the beginning of the 20th century, he wrote 4 remarkable papers about how physics works, how light moves, and how gravity operates, and how actually the world is shaped in not the way we thought. There's this thing called space-time, and he was doing what scientists do all the time. He was curious about the world, and we humans are restlessly curious. Just down the road from Bern in Switzerland is one of the most important technological developments in human history, and it's called the Hadron Collider. Just to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we humans are beginning to uncover through the power of science and technology, how many of you know what the Hadron Collider is? Have you heard about it? It's in Switzerland, and it sits, yes, let's get a microphone, because this machine that we humans have created is helping us to understand the natural world in ways we never have before. Go ahead. The
Sorry, is
Hadron
this on?
Collider.
So is this on?
Yeah, yep, it's on.
Isn't it where they're actually colliding 2 particles into each other?
Yes, there it is. It's one of the largest machines ever created by humans next to the International Space Station. And I'm showing you this because I'm trying to introduce you to what this story is going to be revealing to you through the semester, is that we humans have these forces that we have developed: science, technology, understanding of evolution, and that's giving us so much more knowledge about the way the world really is, about our past and our future. So just imagine the Hadron Collider. Just think of the ability of humans to do something like this. We have built a machine with other humans from around the world. It sits inside of this building just down the road from Bern, where Albert Einstein, the great Albert Einstein, made so many important discoveries. And just down the road, we have about 30, 50 kilometers of this highly developed pipe that goes underground in a big circle. And what we do is we fire subatomic particles moving almost at the speed of light, and they clash into each other. And why would we do that? Do you know why? Because we're recreating the conditions of our origins. The Big Bang. You're going to see that next week when we start this story and we go right back and I show you a computer simulation of the Big Bang from Massachusetts Institute of Technology and how things really began, we believe. But the idea is that we humans, in a very short period of time, working together, have figured out that our origins have something to do with what we call subatomic particles. Actually, subatomic particles are what constitute an atom. We humans learned not that long ago that everything is made of atoms. This, me, you, anything physical, gas, water, it's made up of atoms. Some of you know this chemistry, some of you don't. But then we humans not only figure that out, but then we start to figure out, oh, well, inside the atoms, there are these subatoms. There's protons and there's neutrons and, well, electrons. We didn't figure that out until about 100 years ago, around Albert Einstein's time. Electrons now have become the basis of all modern electronics. So we humans started to understand through the power of science and through studying what's out in the cosmos, and with people like Albert Einstein and other physicists and cosmologists and scientists, that actually the way it all began was that there were these subatomic particles, protons and neutrons. And they, about 13.7 billion years ago, started to kind of rev up, and they started to clash. And electrons started to come a little bit later, and gradually atoms formed, and gases formed, and stars formed, and planets. And now here we are in 2025, and we've created a machine that is recreating what nature did because we want to learn more about nature. Wow. Why are we doing that? What's driving us? What might we be discovering? Who are these people, these humans, who are so restlessly trying to understand things? Human history is filled with war. It's filled with emperors and kings and queens, but they're not really what matters so much to our lives anymore. We have a thing called democracy. We have freedom. We are gradually understanding human rights more. So learning about Julius Caesar and Napoleon and the great kings and queens and all those battles, it's terrific history, how Rome and Greece came and went and Egypt came. Actually, what really, really matters to our future are these people, the scholars and scientists who have been restlessly bringing us new knowledge about who we are. Why would we want to know all of this information? Why are these humans like you restlessly curious about the world around you? Because you want to know. Well, are you ready for the new knowledge? Are you ready for what we will discover in the future if what we have already been discovering is so awesome? We humans, through science, are discovering things in nature we've never seen before, and then we're doing something else with that. We're taking these things from nature that we're learning about, and we're making new tools and machines. That's called technology. Science is understanding how nature works. Technology is what we build as a result of that discovery. Our microprocessors come from the development of transistors. Transistors inside of them have electrons. We figured out how to put an electron, take it out of nature, put it into something, and gradually, not only do we create tools that can help us, but we're creating weapons of mass destruction that are so unlike anything we humans have ever had to deal with in warfare. Albert Einstein is somebody you will hear a lot about, but you will hear a lot about Charles Darwin, Alfred Russel Wallace. You will hear about Galileo and the great scientists and the great philosophers and thinkers and people who were discovering something new. and then building something with that. This is the bomb. This is the first atomic bomb that humans created in 1945. How many of you know the movie Oppenheimer? Robert Oppenheimer. And you may even know the story. You may have read the book about him. It's a very important book, won a lot of prizes. You're going to see when we get to the 20th century, weeks from now, the remarkable century, that the figure Albert Einstein will reemerge with new information that he will take to the United States of America. And he will take to them at a time when Hitler, the German dictator, chancellor, we all know Adolf Hitler and who he was. We will be talking a lot about these individuals too. Albert Einstein was afraid that Adolf Hitler would acquire this knowledge that the scientists had actually uncovered, which is if you take an atom, just a little atom, and you split it, it's called nuclear fission. You take apart an atom, this tiny, tiny, tiny little thing, you just split it apart and you wrench it apart, it releases unimaginable energy. And he took this knowledge to the United States to make sure they had it and not the Germans. And the history that resulted because of this is that a bomb was created by Robert Oppenheimer, what's called the Manhattan Project. A movie's been made of this, and a human being took knowledge from another human being and figured out, oh, if we can split the atom, how then do we maybe create a weapon from this that could help us win a war? And lo and behold, the Japanese attacked the United States at Pearl Harbor. Americans were drawn into the Second World War. And you know the rest of the history a little bit, which is the world changed forever in 1945 when we dropped the atomic bomb on Japan and we unleashed power on the planet, on human beings, that no dictator, no tyrant, no community, no civilization, no society ever in the story of humanity has ever unleashed. Not the Romans, not the Mongols, not the Chinese, not the Incas, not the Europeans, with all their weapons and all their germs. This is what we call omnicide, the destruction of all life on Earth. We humans created it, we used it, and now we got to live with this. Oof. Why did we have to do that? And now that we've done it, what are we going to do? In fact, now that we've got so many people on this planet, growing at 70 million annually, and human civilization has led to a growth of this planet-wide species so quickly, how are we going to stop polluting the environment with the tools and machines that we create that help our civilization keep going? Because it turns out that we humans, we got into the planet in such a way that we figured out, ooh, all this dead stuff, this vegetation that's been dying over millions of years, that gooey black stuff called petroleum, we learned how to extract that. Fossil fuels, it's just dead stuff. And then we built engines, internal combustion engines, to burn that, to create energy, to drive our machines. And then all that's creating garbage, and the natural world is changing, and water is being polluted with oil. We haven't figured out yet, with all of our important technological and scientific discoveries, we have a big problem. Why is it that human beings, in all of this time, in all of human civilization, have not yet dealt with inequality? Why is there still so much violence and war and cruelty and suffering? And why have we made a system called the acquisition of wealth at all costs? Make as much money as you can, damn the rest of everybody else, call it capitalism, Why have we made that into something that is so admirable? Why do we admire people like Elon Musk now, who only care about making money, who only care about building stronger machines, and don't care about anybody else except themselves? And everybody else is just weak if they can't actually keep up. Why did we not, at the same time that we have been building all of these machines and tools, why are we not developing morally, spiritually, emotionally? Why are we grappling with this thing called climate change now, in which so much of the garbage that we're putting into the atmosphere is heating up the planet and is causing all sorts of tumultuous and dramatic events happening? How are we going to stop humans who form this thing called civilization, which essentially is life in cities? That's what civilization is, life in cities. 10,000 years ago, we came out of the wilderness and we started to build the metropolis. Once we did that, and we put all these humans together in one place, we start sending germs all over the place because we're living so close together. How are we going to deal with this reality of the more people you put in a small place, the more potential it is for people to pass on pathogens and diseases? That's a photo from the 1918 flu epidemic. Well, they were wearing exactly the same kinds of masks that you were just 2 or 3 years ago. Here is the big thing that you're going to learn this semester, you're going to come to really understand. And a student put this so beautifully in an assignment he did a few years ago for his final assignment. He said, I have come to realize the importance of what it means to be human. Michael Smith, it got cut off there, but Michael Smith wrote this lovely line. You're going to learn, how did we become human? What have we been doing since we've been human? What are the critical events in the human story? The critical people? What are the critical forces? The critical scientific and technological breakthroughs? And you're going to meet some awesome people in terms of world historians and scholars. Somebody like one of my heroes, but there are many whom I will bring in from my library, many books and others. Jacob Bernowski, 1969, he wrote a book called The Ascent of Man. He was the original Neil deGrasse Tyson. Any of you know Neil deGrasse Tyson? Watch his videos. He was really the first scientist and intellectual who began to popularize science on television. He did a television series, which is still a classic, called The Ascent of Man, and he wrote extensively about the human story. And Jacob Bernowski said something about Earthrise. Remember Earthrise from the beginning, today's talk? He was living and writing and thinking at exactly that time in history, 1969, 1970, when humanity was coming to deal with the fact that there is this planet now. A little bit deflated, but it's still there. And you know what he said? He said, humans have to develop a new mind. A new mind is coming. The mind that can embrace and deal with the larger story, the complexity of the human story on planet Earth. And he said, it's coming, but it's going to take some time because humans aren't quite ready for this. They cling to the old ways. They make up stories and conspiracies to tell you about things because they don't have the open-mindedness, the courage to see the bigger, complex story. There's a new mind coming. Are you ready for it? Well, here is our story this semester, and I'm going to stop here. Next week, we will start with where we begin, and we're going to go right back to the beginning, 13.7 billion years ago, and these are the chapters that I'm going to explore with you every week. The ascent of humanity, civilization, awakenings of power, spells of our god kings, a greater world, the conquest, freedom's power, humanity's stain, the 20th century, and evolution. And what you're going to really begin to understand is what is driving us? What do we want? What do you want in your life is important, but what do we humans want? What are we actually doing here on this planet? What is our purpose? You will understand this more as we explore in the coming weeks, this story of humanity. I'm going to stop for a moment. I've gone a little bit longer than I wanted, but I wanted to make sure that you have this bigger understanding today of the story, but we still have some time left. We're not going to break during each week's class, but we'll end 15 minutes early if that's okay. So we have 15 minutes left. We will always end at 12:45. Okay, so we'll start at 11 or 11:10, and we'll go straight to 12:45. But normally I'll finish the talk about 15 or 20 minutes earlier than this, and we'll be breaking into our group. So for now, let's try something. And just to kind of keep this very simple, I'm going to try and help you to ask your question that will go into the discussion post today. So we'll do a little activity together. I'm not going to put you into your groups. We just don't have enough time. But I'd like you to think for a moment, all of you, of what you've just heard me say. And then we're going to pass the mic around. And I'd like you to just ask a question. The one question that you think needs to be asked. And that will be the question that you put into the discussion post for today, okay? Who's ready to give us that question? And we're going to write maybe one or two down, okay? So, yeah, we have it there. Great. So, do you want to just put maybe questions? We'll start with a slide. Questions? Who's ready to ask a question? Think for a moment. I know that whenever a lecture is given, you're only going to be able to retain about 30% of what I said. And probably being a human with an imagination, your mind was wandering. That's okay. I understand that. But maybe not. But think. Do what humans can do unlike any other creatures. We are good reflectors. We like to think about things. And we have this consciousness, this imagination. It's 360 degrees. We can think ahead. We can imagine what things are going to be like. We can think back in time. We can go all around the world. No creature can do that. So just think for a moment of what you just heard. And Jazeel, let's try it. Let's do a few questions, and then that will get you ready for your discussion post, and then we're going to end the class, okay? So go ahead.
From this story and the explanation and the everything, do you think greed is like the one of the main factors that helps us improve ourselves and push and advance ourselves through history?
Okay, we're going to make it into a question. Now here comes a little bit of pressure. We'll come back to Jazeel in a moment. Mayreen has been doing some extra work today, which is great because she's got to do so many things. Who here likes to write? Like actually? Ron, could you go and stand with Mayreen? Because I think we should get Ron writing. And I'd like to remind you that as you see these sentences being written up here by Master Ron, he's doing something fundamentally and uniquely human. He's writing with his hand what's in his head. He's using an alphabet. We're going to get to that later in civilization, understand how this happened. This is a great power. So, Ron, could you write the question that needs to be asked based on Jaziel's? There he goes. And he has good handwriting. Not bad. Is greed a significant? Excellent. He didn't need his keyboard. He still has the ability to form an A and a B and a C and a D. If you start to lose that ability too much, it just means you are giving more of your abilities over to machines. And I'm not sure you want to do that unless you need a machine to help with your disability. No problem. But if you have no disability and you can't do what he's doing, you got to come talk to me. Please. And we'll have a good discussion. If you cannot write, and I mean those who don't have a disability, okay? Fair enough? If you can't put a letter down and write, you must come talk to me because you are losing out on life and being a human. Okay, keep going, Ron. Stay there, please. Okay, who has another question? Ron, Jaziel started. Okay, great. Microphone, okay. Thanks. Yeah, just take it over there. Be ready for, just listen for a second, okay? Ron, as, what's your name?
Mike.
Mike? Okay, Mike's gonna, and then you don't have to write immediately. You can reflect. Oh, he's already got his name. Oh my God. This is a human who's listening. This is a human who's in the moment. This is a human who's not distracted. Almost. How many of you, including your professor, get easily distracted? Yes. We don't build anything unless we can concentrate. If you're distracted all the time, you need to learn how to be less distracted and concentrate. Then you can become smart like a human. Does that make sense? Excellent. Mike? Okay, so your name again?
Mike.
Oh, Mike. Sorry, Mike. Excellent. Go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
I think a good like general question, it's kind of a cop-out answer, is just why? You know?
Go on. Why what?
Like you can ask it about anything. Like look at the screen up there. Why does that screen work? Oh, it's because of electronics.
Well, guess what? You've just done something quite important. I'm going to help you. Just put down why.
And then you can also ask why to that answer.
I'm going to even stop and say, in a history class, you're not just learning about the content. You're not just learning about the events and the story. You're also learning a way of thinking. It's called thinking historically. Thinking historically. And you know what thinking historically means? You always ask why. See, you were doing that when you were 6 or 7 years old. And then you lost it, or at least you've put that aside because maybe you think it's not so important anymore. The larger the island of knowledge, the longer the shoreline of wonder. The more you ask why, the more knowledge you gain. The more knowledge you gain, often the more humanity you gain. The more you start to see the world and your role here in a way that's almost religious, which is, wow, this thing is a miracle. I'm learning all about what's really been going on here, and I can't believe this has happened the way it has. I'm part of something much bigger and more awesome than I could have ever imagined. This is really amazing. I want to stay a part of this. I don't want to destroy it. But it starts with why. It starts with thinking historically. Everything in your life around you, from, why is the coffee that you got today not the way you want it? And why is your professor talking so much? You're asking why. Because why leads you to new knowledge, to understanding. So we can't get much better than that. Mike. Why? Okay? Why? Why and how are the two biggest questions that you will be asking this semester, and that is called thinking historically. Does that make sense? Let's do a couple more and then we'll end. Let's go over to Ethan. Are you able to jump on your microphone and actually read out loud what you wrote in the live chat, or is your microphone?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah.
Planet is speaking.
The question I
So-
have is humanity
Come over here.
inherently is
Can I get
humanity
you close up? Yeah, go ahead.
is humanity inherently cruel by nature in history and now in the present?
All right, you are now speaking directly to Master Scribe, and his name is Ron, and you can see him right now for
Yes,
his
I see
close
it.
up. And Master Scribe, if you want to speak to Ethan, you can just talk to the black camera over there, and we will see you in close up. And Master Scribe's face will be on YouTube for the whole world to see, for all 6 people watching. There it is. Just talk. Yep. Go ahead. You can talk directly now to Ethan. So, Ethan, I
Ethan,
want to make sure, that your question gets written accurately. So go ahead.
Inherently cruel, right? Is that what you wanted
Inherently
to ask?
cruel by nature in history and now in the present.
By nature and his. Okay, all right.
So let's see what these two humans do. We've got one that we don't even know where he is. He could be in Bangladesh for all we know. That's fine. And we don't need to see him. We can hear him. And he's telling this human over here by this special board, and this is all on YouTube, and they're forming a question together.
Reading a lot of what you were posting on the live chat, and I would like to disagree inherently. Christ, why am I using that word? That humans are inherently cruel. I feel that humans are, perhaps they're motivated by hatred, but we're as creative as we are destructive, really. But we could talk
Yeah,
about that later.
It's kind of a balance.
It is, yeah, yin and yang. Anyhow,
Very good. Cruelty. You're asking a big question, and you're going to learn from the story of civilizations and empires what role cruelty has played. And many students have these questions. They want to know, as a human being, is there really such a thing as an alpha male? And is war, does it have to continue? We know war is bad. We know it's terribly destructive, and we've seen how it's played out, but can't we find another way? You have very big, basic questions. This is what Stephen Hawking once said, another great scientist, physicist, and also a hero. And look at how technology kept his life going, a quadriplegic, and he was still giving us important discoveries. And he said, the only questions that really matter, the only ones that students really want to hear about are the big, basic questions. Don't let anybody tell you how shallow and superficial and distracted young people are today. They're not at all. That's just adults and grown-ups who don't understand. The students today want answers to the big, basic questions. They are asking those questions, but the schools are not giving them help with that. Well, we will do that a lot in this class. Big, basic questions about who we are, where we come from, so you can understand what your future might be. I think we should end the class now. It's a little bit early, but yes, we have a question here, unless you want to stay right to the end. Go ahead, Mike, can you give the gentleman here the microphone? Keep yours, that's yours, Ron, and then, now, why don't you come up here for a second and do something that we'll be doing a lot of this semester. Watch this. Humans like attention. We all do, okay? I'm just going to assume. But then when the time comes to take the spotlight, some of us don't like it, but some of us rise with the courage. This takes courage. He's now right there. Could you tell us your name and tell us what your question is? And let's see if this human can think on his feet fast. This is what we do better than any animal. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Alkama, And I have a question. Why we need history?
Why do we need history? Whew.
ALK.
Way to go.
AMA. ALK. AMA.
You just showed what you're made of. You're a human who rises, gets on his feet, has the courage to speak.
My question was, why we need history?
Why do we need history? Why do we need history? Well, now we've got, thank you, and it's, your name is Alchema, like an alchemist. You know what alchemy is? Alchemy is some of the original science. It's a beautiful thing. Alchema. Thank you very much and welcome to the class, okay? Go ahead and grab a seat. I want to make sure that we also come back to the cosmos and remind ourselves that this class, I think, is working in terms of the process because now we have engagement live in the live chat, which means that there are people who are still remaining on their planets in the cosmos and they're listening to what you said, not what I said. This is persistent collective learning. William McNeill, the great world historian, you will hear a lot about. We humans, we like to learn with each other. And you've just seen it. With each other. And the professor takes a step back and lets you guys begin to teach and learn. And I will just help a little bit when I can. Okay, so does anybody have a question or anything they'd like to say? I've done with the critical content. I think you have a good sense, I hope, of what to expect this semester. You can always email me. It's on DC Connect if you have any questions. I want to thank Ron for his good, stepping up, and also Evan for getting things going. And it's Evan, right? Evan, Ron, Mike, Alkama, and Jazeel, and Piyush, and others. Have a great week. Okay? And online, if there's anything you'd like to speak about, you can put it in the live chat now. I'm going to shortly turn off my microphone, and we're going to end the class. But I'm still here. If there's anything you'd like to say. Oh, yeah, thanks a lot. Don't forget to sign. You lose your participation mark, okay? Sign your name? Yeah, good. Thank you. Everybody sign? Great, okay. Yeah, make sure, Evan, because I will forget. Okay, excellent. Alkema, sign. Okay, see you next week, Marshall, Ethan, Xavier, I think it is, and everyone else. Absolutely. That can be your question for the discussion post. Just put it right into the discussion post. You get your 3 out of 3. DC Connect. Yeah, so on the content page of DC Connect, you'll see the class 1 folder. Click there and you'll see the discussion board there. Yes, it is. Yeah, you're good. Okay.